Seal Point. Lots of pigeons, not many seals. Also, it's a landfill.
So many questions.
Well, good news, if you have questions, you can get free advice.
That's where the questions are coming from.
That's a good boy. Max has to go to the vet this morning. He has a bump on his chest. Pretty good sized one. He had the same thing about 3 years ago, and unfortunately it came back. So they're gonna hack it off again. Max is pretty excited about it. Aren't you, pup? You'll be fine. I'm back. I know it's been a while. Sorry about that. Had to take some time to really contemplate my life choices after the shellacking I took on that Equinox. I do have a bit of a problem though. As a YouTuber, my entire life is dedicated to pleasing a ruthless money harvesting algorithm. And currently, it demands its blood sacrifice in the form of long, tightly focused videos with a broad audience appeal. So the question then is, what do we do with all the short, scattered, somewhat drowsiness-inducing videos? You know, the kind that I like to make. Well, my current plan is to congeal those clips into a roughly video-shaped object and then chuck that into the volcano in hopes that the rumbling will stop. It's a long-winded way of saying this is a compilation video, and I hope you like it. Doesn't sound too good. This is a water pump from a John Deere 2940 tractor. This tractor, in fact. You may have seen it before. I've done a lot of work to this thing over the years. I put a head gasket in it. I think I split it once and replaced the rear main seal. It's a little crunchy, and I guess it was leaking profusely. A whole water pump from John Deere was over $1,000. A whole aftermarket pump was about half that. But you can buy a kit right from the dealership and rebuild it yourself. And this tractor has, I think it's over 14,000 hours. So I'm sure this pump's been rebuilt at least once before. It's really not that bad. You do need a press and some pullers. That's good. The kit comes with a little plastic tool to install the seal. Pretty close. The impeller has to be set correctly. There's a clearance between the housing and the impeller blades, and then the pulley has to be set to the right depth. So I just measured that stuff off the pump before I took it apart and put it back together like it was. I think that'll work. Worked out pretty good. Really a pretty easy job. That's it.
My neighbor picked up this old Chrysler for $300. We're looking at the good side, trust me. Anyway, the sunroof was stuck open. I figured out the switch was not switching. It's a membrane switch, but instead of the normal carbon pads under the membrane, these almost look like brass. And I tried cleaning them, but I just couldn't make them work. And of course, the switch is long since discontinued. So to fix it, I harvested some tactile switches from an old humidifier control panel I had laying around. And I figured I could just solder them to the circuit board. So I had to cut through the traces so they wouldn't, accidentally bridge. And then, scrape off a bit of the solder mask. They really fit on there pretty well. I did have to grind down the switch body just a little bit to fit over those taller switches. Once everything was put back together, you'd have no idea that it was ever modified. Time for my favorite activity, landscaping. Now these trees, I don't know if you want to call them trees, but they've gotten out of control. They're getting up into the eaves, they're blocking the door. I can't really trim them. I think they're gonna have to go. And I'm gonna take out all the river rock. This is all full of weeds, and we're gonna start over. Kind of sets the tone for the day. We went to Open Sauce, William Osmond's chaotic but surprisingly very functional science fair for adults. We actually went out early and poked around San Francisco for a few days. I don't know if I could live there, but I do like to visit. It is mind-boggling that cable cars could ever have been a viable form of transportation. Apparently, at one time, there were 8 individual cable car companies operating in San Francisco. And as far as I know, this is the last operating cable car system in the world.
Hear it slow down? That was weird.
Open Sauce, you kind of just have to see it for yourself. It's a place for hundreds of smart, creative people who are probably on at least one government watch list to show off all the clever things that no one asked them to build.
Just hanging out by a scrap airplane, as one does.
Yeah, it's what I like to do in my free time.
There was a very tidy EV conversion of a Bug-Eye Sprite. He used a forklift motor and built the battery pack. He hacked the controller. It was a very nice build. I got to nerd out with Curious Mark about Apollo 13 electrical diagnostics. The world's fastest Rubik's Cube solver was there. I tried to ask these guys some questions, but they didn't seem to know really anything about how the servo system actually works. Excessive Overkill brought his homebrew controller for industrial robots. He had a really cool demo where you could remote control a robot arm and stack some blocks. I got to talk with him for a few minutes. He had a pretty cool setup. I met a surprising number of fans, which is still bizarre to me. We met John from Farmcraft 101, had a good time with him. I wish I could have met some of the other creators, but there was just so much happening. I actually was going through the exhibit listing, and I don't think I even saw a fourth of the things that were actually at the show. And we were there all day, both days.
I feel like it's
I think that's cameraman John. I always thought he was just a camera and a hand.
Flies are crazy. They are out for blood. Another day, another broken Chevrolet. An Equinox, if you can believe that, 2017. She took it to another shop. It had a P0013 code, which is something to do with the VVT system. They told her it needs a timing chain, and then they very wisely said, we don't do timing chains. I did some poking and prodding, and it did not need a timing chain. I'm going to show you what I found, and we can also test out a fun new toy. All right. This is a Hewlett-Packard 34401A 6.5 digit precision multimeter. I don't know how old this is. And Russell, he took it apart, replaced all the crusty electrolytic capacitors, gave it a tune-up, and then spent a small fortune shipping it up here to me. Thank you, Russell. I appreciate it. I guess there's a bracket for these terminals that's missing. I got to replace that. But it does work. At least it did the last time I played around with it. So I'll fire it up here. It's got this cool, I think it's called a VFD display. This one should be resistance, and I believe it's auto ranging. It does all the stuff we take for granted today. But I bet back in the day this thing cost a small fortune. It's kind of hard to imagine. You know, today we think of Hewlett-Packard as a kind of a zombie brand, like Rigid or Singer, you know, kind of trading on their brand name to sell disposable printers and, you know, commodity level hardware. But at one time, and maybe still is the case, I don't know, but, you know, Hewlett-Packard used to be the preeminent manufacturer of scientific test equipment. Actually, I think they got started with audio oscillators. Somebody will correct me in the comments if I get this wrong, but I think the problem was with vacuum tubes, they make a lot of heat, and as they heat up, they distort, cause a lot of problems. And he figured out by putting a regular light bulb in series with the feedback loop, the light bulb would change resistance with temperature, and it would compensate for the distortion. He patented it, and the rest is history. So these are the VVT solenoids. This is a good one, and you can see right about 10 ohms. So it should draw, roughly an amp. All right. So you can see right off the hop, we've got a problem. We're in kilo ohms. That's not good. So if I just tweak these a little bit, oh, we're already up to mega ohms. And now we're down to 11 ohms. So yeah, somewhere in there we have a broken wire or some kind of high resistance connection. Luckily, pretty simple diagnosis. Okay, well, I probably don't need 6.5 digits of precision to condemn a bunch of GM junk, but I'm going to put it on my electronics bench, and I'm sure we're going to use it for something. I do know, well, I think these are like the plug-in oscilloscopes. You got to be careful not to create ground loops. If you have a device plugged into the wall and you're testing it with this device plugged into the wall, you're sharing a ground and a neutral, and you get loops, and pretty soon you'll let the smoke out and bad things happen. So we'll try not to do that. It's very cool. Thank you, Russell. On to the next project.
This thing is a drive gear for the lead screw on a lathe. Not my lathe, but one just about like it. I don't know how they managed to break it, but it's actually been repaired before. Somebody brazed it and then recut the teeth, probably just by hand with a file. It's really not a bad looking repair, but it just didn't hold up. I'm going to guess this was probably temporary until it worked. From what I can tell, making gears is like the holy grail for the home shop machinist. I've always found home shop economics particularly baffling, but it's really hard to justify making a gear that you can buy. Even if it's something really weird, it's usually better to just buy a standard gear and modify everything around it to make it work. This is a 36-tooth Module 2 metric gear. And here in Freedom Land, metric gears are a little tougher to get, but there were a few options. And there's just no way I could make a gear like this and come out ahead. Not even close. Luckily, this is already an assembly of 2 gears. So all we have to do is just persuade the new gear to fit.
That'll do.
To make a spacer, I just hacked the end off the old gear. always get a ton of questions about this tapping machine. It is super handy. It holds the part and keeps the tap aligned. The fastest way to break a tap is to thread it in crooked. You end up with all the cutting force on one side, and it will break the tip off every time. This machine solves that problem as long as the hole is drilled straight. You can find these at any purveyor of imported machine tools. There are fancier ones with power tapping heads. That would probably be good for like a production run. But for what I do, the hand crank is just fine. That'll do. That'll do nicely. It's the best kind of repair, the kind that you can't even tell is a repair. And it should actually be better than new. The original gear was cast iron, and obviously the teeth were pretty brittle. The replacement gear is some kind of mild steel, or maybe medium carbon steel. It should be a lot tougher. Not that it really needs to be. There shouldn't be that much torque on this system, but obviously, you know, things happen. So that job is done. This is the condensate pump from the HVAC system in my house. It stopped working a couple weeks ago, and I gave it the old Fonzie diagnostic tap, and it started smoking, which is never a good sign. And I narrowed it down to the switch. Well, that's the culprit right there. Little micro switch. And that should be the replacement. Looks about the same. So for whatever reason, this side over here stays connected all the time. And you can see there's a little bit of meltage in the plastic here around that contact. You can see it a bit on this side of the case too. But you got a little toasty. Sometimes I wonder what my life would be like if everything I owned wasn't a broken piece of junk. We'll probably never find out, but it's kind of a fun thought experiment. It might be time to start shopping for a new lathe. This old girl's getting pretty rough. I see we've got a fun new oil leak. I don't know where that's coming from, but it's probably not good. I'm guessing the seal on that shaft is leaking somewhere, because we've got a nice puddle on the floor too. I mean, I can't complain. This machine owes me nothing. I've owned it for probably almost 15 years. And it was well used when I got it. It came out of a shop that built sprint cars, and among other things, they used it to notch chrome moly tubing. That's why there's a hole cut through the splash pan back there. I mean, I like this machine. It's a perfect size for what I do, but it is so clapped out. The chuck, I can't install the 4-jaw chuck unless I remove 2 of the cam lock pins, because for whatever reason, it binds up with those 2 in it. The 3-jaw chuck, there's spots where it's so tight I have to put like a bar on the chuck key to turn it past. The bed is pretty good. It's not worn that bad, but the cross slide is completely clapped out. The compound's clapped out. The little plate here that tells you the angle is broken and missing. The power feed slips. I mean, you got to wrench this thing right down, and it still barely will pull the carriage. The oiler doesn't work. The tailstock, the little gizmo that pops the Morse tapers out is missing. So you saw I have to use this little plate of steel to pop the live center out. It's got some problems. I'm kind of thinking about getting maybe like a tool room CNC lathe, like one of those Haas tool room lathes or something equivalent to that. I don't know what you guys think about those machines. I don't see any reason why I couldn't do everything I need to do with some sort of a CNC machine. And I mean, manual machining, as far as I'm concerned, it's not that great. You just end up with a bunch of chips all over the floor and burns all over your arm. I don't know why everybody waxes nostalgic about it. Yeah, might be time to say goodbye to this old girl. It's not worth fixing, in my opinion. Hi, pup. Max is doing fine. I think it's been 3 days since his surgery. He's running around just like his usual self. Aren't you, pup? A lot of flies today. The landscaping is not so good. I got everything carved out, trying to kind of grade it away from the building so the water goes where I want it to. But we've had, I think, the hottest and most humid summer that I can remember. The dew point has been above 75 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 2 weeks. Every time it rains, it makes a bunch of mud and then it never dries. And I couldn't even touch that with the skid steer without getting stuck. So it's on hold. It's kind of a mess. Speaking of messes, I'm trying to get my scrap metal taken care of. Summer is just such a rat race. I have a year worth of outdoor projects to cram into 6 months, and it gets a little chaotic. Let me know what you think about this compilation format. I know it gets confusing if there are too many non-sequential plot lines. It's too hard to skip through all the boring parts. A lot of you are not happy that I haven't been posting as many videos. I don't have a great explanation for why that's happening, other than it's just summer and we're super busy. I've talked about this before. YouTube is constantly growing, and you kind of have to keep moving or you're going to get left behind. And I feel like we've reached a point where the minimum viable threshold for a video is pretty high, and it's constantly a challenge to stay in the Goldilocks zone of being interesting and ambitious enough to stand out from the crowd, but not so ambitious that things never get done, or that the amount of effort that I put into the video is not justified by the views that I can get. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is I can't promise that there will be more videos. This is a high dollar production. We lost the light. But I can promise that I'm putting as much effort into this process as is humanly possible. So thanks for watching.